For the longest time, they thought it was a ghost, but it was literally someone living in their walls, in their house. Daniel LaPlante was born in Townsend, Massachusetts, and his upbringing was tough, to say the least. He suffered SA from a very young age, not only at the hands of his father, but also stepfather, and later on as a teenager by his own psychiatrist. He lived in a house with his mother and his stepfather, but he was primarily raised by the mom, although not really though, because his entire childhood he was severely neglected. His mom just quite literally did not care. The house he grew up in was filthy. He didn't really shower often, so he was always a little bit smelly, and he was known to be unhygienic, and because of that, people later on in high school bullied him often. Students at his high school, but also people in the neighborhood, described him to be odd and kind of a loner. He just preferred to spend his time alone, probably because people were not very nice to him very often, so oftentimes he would walk outside and go to the woods behind his house, and he would hang out in the woods by himself for hours. While he was in high school, he found out that he was dyslexic, and shortly after, he was also diagnosed with hyperactivity disorder. By 15 years old, Daniel was acting out and he began breaking into people's houses, and he had this thing for scaring people. He liked to scare people. He got like a rush of adrenaline when people feared him, so he began breaking into people's houses, and at first he would only break in to steal valuables, but then it turned into him either leaving things behind or moving furniture around because he liked to install fear in people. It just kept escalating, and then in 1986, he met a 15-year-old girl named Tina Bowen. Tina lived at home with her sister and her father, Frank. The family had just very recently lost their mother to cancer, so they were coping through that loss, and her father began working longer hours at work because he needed to provide for the family. One day, Tina and her sister were home alone. When the house phone rang, they answered, and the boy on the other line said that his name was Daniel and that he was calling for Tina because he had gotten her phone number from a mutual friend, and Tina was giddy. She was a teenage girl. She was like, oh my goodness, this boy has a crush on me. He thinks that I'm cute. This is so fun and exciting. What she did not know was that Daniel had not gotten her phone number from a mutual friend. He had actually previously broken into the Bowens house, and while he was inside, he was looking through the family pictures. He saw Tina. He thought that she was really pretty, somehow got the house phone number, and then began calling her because he became obsessed with her just from seeing her in the family photographs. But of course, Tina didn't know this, so she kept answering his calls. They kept getting closer until eventually Daniel asked her out to go on a date to the local fair. She agrees. Daniel shows up at her house to meet up for their date. He knocks on the door. Tina answers, and she's like, whoa, you kind of look a lot different than the way that you described yourself on the phone, because I guess on the phone Daniel said that he was blonde, tall, athletic, but then he showed up and he was kind of the complete opposite. And remember, he didn't have parents that cared for him. He didn't really care for himself, so he was always a little bit dirty. His hair was greasy. He was a little bit stinky. Tina was just surprised, but she still decided to go on the date. They're walking around talking when Tina tells Daniel that she just recently lost her mother to cancer, and Daniel is like, whoa, and Tina is like, whoa, and Daniel says, tell me more, and then he starts asking the most out-of-pocket questions like, how much pain was your mom in? How bad did she suffer? What did you feel inside of you when you found out that you no longer had a mother? And he's asking these questions with excitement. There's like a little sparkle in his eyes, and Tina's like, all right, dude, take me home. She goes home with no intentions of ever seeing Daniel again. A few days pass, and Tina and her sister are home alone again, and they're really missing their mom, so they decide to go to the basement and play with a Ouija board to see if they can talk to her. They do that, nothing happens, they put it away, they go to bed. Later that same night, Tina is in her bedroom when she starts hearing tapping on the walls. She runs to her sister's bedroom and she tells her about the tapping. She's freaking out. She's like, did you hear it too? And the sister says, yeah, I heard tapping coming from the walls too. So both girls are freaking out, but then they're like, whoa, maybe it's a sign from mom. Maybe mom is trying to contact us. The tapping on the walls keeps happening throughout the week, into the next week, and then into the next week. By the third week, both of them are like, all right, this is only happening either in the middle of the night or when we're home alone. Now this is getting a little bit excessive. They're getting pretty scared, so they tell their dad, but the tapping never happens when the dad is around, so they can't really prove it to him. So the dad is just like, okay, yeah, girls, sure, whatever. Days go on and things just keep getting weirder because now it's not only the tapping, now things are being taken and moved around. The milk in the fridge seems to disappear, like neither the girls or the father are drinking the milk, yet there's no milk in the fridge. Food in the fridge and the pantry is going missing. Furniture is being moved around. The TV channels are changing by themselves. One time, one of the sisters left the glass and a plate of food out for a second. She came back to it after like leaving it alone for like 2 minutes. The water out of her glass had been drank and the plate of food had disappeared. Like now this was feeling like psychological torment, and the girls start to believe that they may have contacted some sort of evil spirit when they were using the Ouija board, because now things were getting ridiculous and the girls were so confused and so scared because everything happened while they were either alone or in the middle of the night. And then their dad would come home and they would tell him, but he just always thought that the girls girls were trying to mess around with him or something. He never thought like, oh, there's a ghost in the house or there's someone in the house. He always just thought the girls were trying to be funny. And then one day the girls are home alone again. They go down to the basement and they find a message written in red on the wall that said, "I'm in your room, come and find me." They were terrified. They run out of their house into their neighbor's house until their dad came home from work. When he did, the girls showed him. The dad went to go check it out, realized that the message was written in tomato sauce and was like, okay, this is a joke. Like, he still thought that it was the girls. A few weeks later, the same thing happens again, but this time the message is written upstairs by Tina's bedroom in the hallway, and it says, "I'm back, come and find me." They run over to the neighbor's house again. Their dad leaves work and he gets home. He goes to check it out. He's walking around the house and he notices another message written on the walls in red that says, "Marry me." And then he sees a boy standing in the corner. Daniel LaPlante was standing in the corner wearing a wedding dress that he stole from a closet, the wedding dress from the mother that is no longer alive. Some reports even state that he had a wig on his head. The dad sees him, tries to run at him. Daniel somehow manages to get away and he runs away. When police officers show up, they find a crawl space where Daniel was hiding, sitting on the ground, curled up, and he was arrested. They also find that from that crawl space that he had been hiding in, there were like passageways and small spaces inside of the walls in the house that led to every single room. And Daniel had also created peepholes behind the walls to be able to look into every single one of the rooms. So he had literally been in their walls for months, watching them and roaming around, scaring the girls and sneaking out to steal food and move furniture and write things on the wall. You can imagine Tina's shock when once she learned that a boy had been living in their walls for months. He had a whole setup, by the way. There was like a sleeping bag in there amongst other things. But then too, the shock when she realized that it was the weird boy that she had gone on a date with. She was petrified. Daniel LaPlante was arrested and held in juvie for 10 months. That was until his birthday, when they could change the charges for him to be tried as an adult. When he was moved from juvie to jail in October of 1987, his mother remortgaged her house to be able to pay his $10,000 bail. 2 months later, Daniel LaPlante would commit his worst crime yet. Almost immediately after he got home on bail, he went right back into breaking into people's houses. Mid-October, he broke into a house and he stole 2 weapons. And on December 1st of 1987, in the middle of the day, Daniel LaPlante walked out of his house, walked back towards the woods behind it. He made his way over to the Gustafsons family house that was about a half a mile away from his. The Gustafsons family consisted of the wife, Priscilla, who was pregnant at the time, her husband, Andrew, and their 2 kids that were aged 5 and 7 years old. Every single person that knew them would describe that family to be the sweetest family ever. They were just the kind of family that were friendly to every single person that they met, and they were loved by so many people. Excuse me. When Daniel broke into their home, he was carrying the stolen weapon, and he walked in to find that only Priscilla was home with her 5-year-old son. He threatened to use the weapon on Priscilla as he guided her to her own bedroom, where he would SA her and then use the weapon twice to end her life. He then found her 5-year-old son. He went upstairs to fill up the bathtub in the upstairs bathroom, and he held him underwater until he was gone. Then the 7-year-old little girl got dropped off by the school bus in front of her house. She walked in to find Daniel, and he did the exact same thing to her. Afterwards, Daniel left and went to go to his niece's birthday party. The husband, Andrew, obviously was not home at the time he was at work, but when he got home around 5 p.m., he walked into the most horrific crime scene. He had been calling Priscilla all afternoon, but of course, she had not answered his calls. So by the time that he got home, he was already concerned, and as you can imagine, his world shattered in 5 minutes. When he got home and he walked in to find his wife deceased in the bedroom on the bed with a pillow covering her face. Andrew ran out of the house immediately to call the police. He did not look for his kids because he was afraid that he would find them deceased, and he knew that he would not be able to take it. He could hardly manage to keep himself together long enough to call the police after finding his wife, and he knew that if he saw his children like that too, he would never ever recover. Officers arrived and they found the 2 little kids deceased. My heart breaks for Andrew. I have no words. Officers, of course, knew of Daniel LaPlante. They knew that he lived nearby. They knew that he had just gotten out on bail, and they knew that he had a history of breaking into houses. There was also DNA left at the scene, so they immediately set off to go find him. When they found him, he denied everything, of course, but there was more than enough evidence against him. But when they went to go arrest him, he booked it. He ran as fast as he could to the woods behind his house, and there was a massive search for him. But eventually, on December 3rd of 1987, he was found hiding in a dumpster, and he was finally arrested and taken into custody. He was charged with the deaths of Priscilla, her 5-year-old son, her 7-year-old daughter, plus the several charges he was already facing for stalking and living in the house of the Bowen family, plus other charges for other crimes that he committed while he was out on the run. He was 18 years old at the time of his trial. He pled not guilty, but he was found guilty of all charges and he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. In 2017, he applied to get a reduced sentence, but the judge ruled that he was very clearly not remorseful at all for everything that he had done, so that was denied, and he was a menace in prison. He was the worst. He will not be eligible for parole again until 2032. But I honestly don't think that we will ever see him be released on parole because of how bad his behavior is, but who knows? Yeah. Terrifying. That is all I have for today's video. I'm gonna go before the sun sets and this room goes pitch black, but let me know what your thoughts are on this case. Let me know if you've heard of this before, because the entire time, like, I read about him living in the walls and I was like, oh, that's the crime, right? That's the main thing that he did. No, and then he went on to commit the most horrific of crimes. Anyway, thank you for spending time with me today. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.